Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here with episode 2 of my Games of the Decade series, where I give a retrospective look back on my 3 favorite games for each year between 2010 and 2019. Today we'll be looking at my number 2 game from 2010, Red Dead Redemption. In Rockstar Games' 2010 tribute to the final days of the old American West, you will play the role of protagonist John Marston, a grizzled, no-nonsense former outlaw gang member who is being coerced by shadowy government agents into hunting down his former gang and bringing them to justice. The government agents are purposefully keeping his wife and son away from him as they force John to do their bidding, and he is compelled to oblige. Along the way, you will encounter a wide array of memorable characters, both friend and foe, who will either aid and or hinder you on your path to redemption. In the game, you will travel through fictionalized versions of the Old West and Mexico in a time when stagecoaches, horses, and campfires were giving way to railroads, motorcars, and electricity. In addition to the well-written and always entertaining John Marston, the game also features some of the most interesting side characters ever written by Rockstar Games. From the crazed grave robber Seth, to the snake oil salesman Todd Howard, Nigel Weds Dickens, to my personal favorite, the drunken Irishman named simply Irish. The array of characters provide a naturally comedic and oftentimes ridiculous backdrop against John's much more serious tough guy exterior. Throughout it all, though, Marston exudes a righteous focus on the task at hand, and he will stop at nothing to be reunited with his family. Throughout the story, the player will be tasked with clearing gangs out of their hideouts, securing bounties by hog-tying your victims to the back of your faithful horse, assaulting forts full of your former colleagues, and taking part in a Mexican revolution. There are also numerous side activities that in 2010 still felt fresh and new, even though now many of these activities may feel a bit dated. Unlike many modern games, however, these tasks actually led to some in-game rewards and reputation that actually feel rewarding. Completing side quests, for example, can unlock new cosmetic skins for John, unlike in 2019 when every game would try to sell you the skins for $10 a piece. Red Dead Redemption also features one of the most iconic and beautiful open worlds of the last decade. The map is huge, but not overly so, desolate, but not empty. From the barren desert of Armadillo, to the sun-drenched mesas of Mexico, to the cold snowy mountains north of Blackwater, Red Dead Redemption has one of the most cohesive and believable open worlds of the entire decade. Overall, the game features unique, rich, rambling environments, a phenomenal cast of characters, an engaging storyline, and one of the most brutally tragic endings in gaming history. While the gunplay mechanic can often hinder the experience, it is a small price to pay to experience one of the most memorable and beautiful worlds in open world gaming. At least you could say the horse riding was superior to any other game of the entire decade, including Red Dead Redemption 2. 2010's Red Dead Redemption represents Rockstar at its finest. Before they started taking themselves too seriously, before they lost the natural sense of humor that endeared them to gamers in the first place, Red Dead Redemption maintains the arcadey gameplay of Rockstar's previous titles, and the game is all the better for it. I will say that Red Dead 2 could have benefited greatly from sticking closer to its predecessor in that regard. It also represents the last Rockstar game before they decided to monetize the hell out of every aspect of their games, and that is still something to celebrate. I'd be remiss if I also didn't mention that Undead Nightmare, the phenomenal DLC that repurposes the Red Dead map into a zombie apocalypse, where you maintain the character of John Marston, but the rest of the world is drastically changed. Undead Nightmare is widely considered to be one of the best DLC expansions in gaming, and in that, I can concur. The game also included a robust multiplayer online world, but that again puts Red Dead 2's online component to shame. But the multiplayer in it is not the focus of my video here, so I won't dwell on that aspect for long. All in all, Red Dead Redemption is an exemplary game, one of my favorite titles of all time, and John Marston is easily in my top 5 protagonists that I've ever played, truly deserving of its spot on Coach's Games of the Decade list. Okay, so now we're moving on to the more rambling discussion part of the video. So what can I say about Red Dead Redemption in 2010? This was a very important game for me. Personally, I've discussed this before on the channel. This is the game that really got me back hardcore into gaming. For years, I guess you could have considered me more of a casual gamer. I played a lot when I was a kid, played a lot as a teenager, but then I kind of started drifting away, had other things to do when I was in my 20s. And so when Red Dead came along. There's finally one game that sucked me right back into gaming. I couldn't put this thing down, and it's actually the first game that I really sunk my teeth into in a multiplayer setting at all. So that's one of the things where, when it comes to multiplayer games, I know some people just only like single player, especially a lot of my audience tends to be very single player focused, but I also enjoy a good multiplayer game every now and then. And this is a game that I just spent hours and hours of playing. There wasn't really an in-game timer at the time, but I must have put 1,000 hours into this game. I played this game religiously, had a group of friends that I played with all the time, pretty much every day for probably about a year and a half. I played this game, and I just couldn't put it down. Maxed out my character, which back then took quite a long time to actually do, and got some records on the record board. Got some worldwide #1 times in the online horse racing, both on PS3 and Xbox 360. I got into the top 100 in Stronghold mode. It's just a game that I just put a ton of time into. It's one of my favorite games that I've ever played, and the story is fantastic. Like I said in the video, John Marston is one of my favorite protagonists, and when I first played the game, I would say he was my favorite protagonist. There's been a couple other protagonists over the last decade or so that may have knocked him off the top spot. But I still regard him quite fondly. And going back through the game, playing through the game, you can't help but notice how much lighter in tone and more comedic the game is than Red Dead Redemption 2. And John is just he's gritty, he's rough, he doesn't take any nonsense, but at the same time there's a comedic edge to pretty much every cutscene, every storyline. And this is back when Rockstar really still had that sense to them. They didn't try to take themselves too seriously. Everything was kind of tongue in cheek. Even the serious scenes with, like the scenes with Seth digging bodies out of the grave, and it still is funny. It's not gruesome or disgusting. It's still a comedic scene, because that's kind of how these games were. Even if serious stuff was happening, there was something also ridiculous happening at the time. And that was just the Rockstar motif at the time. That is how they went about their business. And it was very entertaining. That's how Rockstar really made their bread and butter. That's where they got the huge fan base that they have and maintain today. Back in the 2000s to 2010, and I would say nowadays they take themselves a little bit too seriously. Red Dead Redemption 2 is great for many reasons, but the tongue-in-cheek humor that the 2010 Red Dead had, just something about it that I really enjoy. And going back through and playing the game again, I really got struck with the dichotomy between the two different games, because this game is it's more arcadey feeling. It feels more like a video game and less like a cowboy simulator that Red Dead 2 had. And once again, Red Dead 2 is a perfectly fine game. There's a lot of good strengths to the game, but I kind of did like this version playing back through it. It really got me to stay in the world. I wanted to keep playing, and I still am going back to it. Even though I captured all the footage I needed, I've still been going back the last couple nights and still putting time into the game because I want to keep playing, because I'm enjoying it that much. But there's also some problems with the game. Yes, it was a buggy game on both consoles, and even playing through it now, I did experience a good amount of bugs, stuff floating through the air. That's a very common one. Animals just clipping in place and just running and running, all sorts of stuff like that. It's not as buggy as some other games at the time, and it's not as buggy as some games that still get released today, but it is well known for bugs, and that's true. It's also known for the classic Rockstar kind of herky-jerky gunplay. You can try to play this game in free aim. Good luck to you. If you're someone who wants to be completely masochistic about it, you can do that. I think the free aim in this game is really bad. I'm not a fan of lock-on aiming either, but that's really it's really the preferred way to play this game. I will say that. So yes, there's some issues with the gameplay. It's not perfect, but like I said in the video, the horseplay is actually superb. And I did not ride another horse in another video game that did it better than this game did back in 2010. Pretty remarkable that even on the next generation of consoles, we didn't get anything that surpassed what Rockstar was able to do in that regard. And that includes The Witcher 3. I know some people think that game actually did it well. Just go back and play this game and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's also refreshing when I went back to play this. I was wanted to change the character skin on my character, and then I remembered, you go into the menu, you open up the outfits menu, and there's all these locked outfits that you can get for your character. And it gives you, when you discover what the outfit is in the game by progressing through missions or discovering a hideout or doing whatever. There's certain things in the game that will allow you to discover the outfits, and then it'll give you a checklist of things you have to do in the game to actually acquire those skins. And it was just such a breath of fresh air after seeing all these games for so many years where pretty much every game you either play with the default skin or you get nothing else, or you're paying real money. And it was so nice to have something, and it actually gives meaning to the side quests as you play through the game. If you do the optional side content that you don't have to do to progress through the story, it actually is like you're still working towards something other than just clearing things off of a massive checklist. Yes, there are some checklisty things to do. There's some certain tasks they want you to do, like pick 10 flowers, do skin 5 wolves, stuff like that. Yes, and this is really one of the first games that did stuff like that, where it wanted you to do the checklist stuff. So once again, at the time, it was a little bit more fresh and it was new. But the cosmetic skin thing really stuck out to me because that's just something we don't get at all, almost in any game anymore, and it was really nice to see. As I mentioned in the video as well, the ending of this game, I don't, I guess it won't really be spoilerific because this game's almost 10 years old, but for anyone who maybe hasn't played and still wants to go back and play, the ending of the game is very unexpected and takes a shocking turn. And it is really, it's one of the first games that I played where I was just like I had my jaw drop at the end of the storyline, well, the main storyline at least, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It's really a strong narrative for back in 2010. You didn't really get too many games that did it as well as Rockstar did with Red Dead Redemption. Anyway, that's it from me, Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you for watching my second episode of my Games of the Decade series. I'll be working on I've actually started working on the next one, and that one's going to be maybe a little bit robust. I'm going to have a follow-up video for that one too. I'm going to be working on a bit of a bigger project. So that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward, and as always, keep it turned to 11.